brick. As we do that, we've been going through this series, the Beatitudes. And we've been talking about what it looks like for us to have a blessed life. And it might look different than what we might originally think. And this week, I've been tasked to talk about this idea that blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called sons of God. You know, this passage could have said many different things. You know, instead of peacemakers, it could have said, blessed are the righteous. Or if you want, blessed are those who are right, so, for they will be called sons of God, right? But it doesn't say that. It could have said, blessed are the perfect, for they would be called sons of God, but it doesn't say that. It could have said, blessed are those fathers who have 3 or plus more kids, right? Would that be nice? For you shall be called sons of God, right? It could have said, blessed are those that have followed struggling sports teams their entire life, i.e. a Cleveland Browns fan, right? Blessed would I be, and I would be called a son of God. But it doesn't say that. It says, blessed are the peacemakers. Have you ever walked into a situation and believed that you were bringing peace into a situation only to find out that you hadn't? Have you guys ever had that happen? This week, my kids get home from school, the 2 oldest, 10 and 8. They walk into the room. My wife and I are sitting there. And my oldest, my daughter, 10, she says, hey, I'm going to go down to her friend's house just a couple doors down. She said, her mom said I could come over and we could play. And she's like, is that cool? I was like, yeah, go ahead. Malachi, my 8-year-old, he says, hey, my friend on the bus said I could go over to his house. He lives on the other side of the neighborhood, and so it's not like he's old enough to ride his bike over there or anything yet. And we said, well, did his mom say it's okay for you to come over? And he said, I don't know. My friend just said to come. And you know how you press for more information, and then after a while they give too much information, right? So we begin pressing. Well, did his mom say it was okay? And he's like, well, he just said to come over. And, well, did his mom say it was okay? And he says, well, he said that the babysitter could watch us, right? Well, too much information, right? And so my daughter walks back into the room, and we're questioning Malachi about this. And she looks at him, and she says, Malachi, you can't invite yourself to people's homes. And I looked at Riley, and I said, way to go, girl. That's it. You tell your brother, he can't invite himself to people's homes. So I'm sitting there, and I'm thinking I'm bringing peace into a situation. I'm thinking to myself, I'm teaching my 10-year-old, I'm discipling my 10-year-old to know the proper etiquette of parenthood, right? Well, that gets Malachi all riled up, and he's like, shut up, Riley, And my wife is sitting there. She had already gotten out of the conversation. I thought it was cool to still be a part of the conversation. So I'm thumbs up, Riley. My wife speaks in, and my wife says, Riley, don't tell your brother what to do. What did my daughter do? She threw me under the bus. She says, well, Dad said it was okay. So here I am. I'm thinking I'm bringing peace into a situation, only to find out that I was creating a war between brother and sister, right? Peacemakers, for they will be called sons of God. It's an interesting passage. And I'm going to tell you, it's one of those passages, I don't know if I fully am able to embrace at times. In order to be a peacemaker, you almost have to come from a place of peace, right? If I'm going to move into a situation, and we talked last week about creating, right? The idea that we have been made to create. And if I move into a situation and I'm to speak peace into that situation, then I must come from a place of peace myself. Can I tell you that Fridays are a day that I try to take, because weekends I am in meetings. I'm getting ready for this morning, and then this morning just leading. And so Fridays I try to create a time just of rest, right? Now, when I say rest, I'm not talking about like binge watching Daredevil and eating wings all day, right? That's not what I'm talking about, although that would be cool at times, right, guys? Yeah, that's right. No, I'm talking about, how do I create space in my life to truly rest, to truly be quiet, to truly listen? I'm not always good about that. I'm not always good at that, and sometimes it's just unnerving, right? I want you to do something today. Find your pulse. Find your pulse. Can you guys find that? Find your pulse. And I want you to count. I'm going to give you 30 seconds. Let me pull it up here. 30 seconds. Did you find your pulse? You have one, right? I can't find it. Dude, you're screwed. Find your pulse. You ready? All right, now count. Go. Stop. Now take and double that, and you should be between 60 and 80, right? They say that's healthy, 60 to 80. You guys fall, how many of you guys fell between 60 and 80? All right, how many of you guys, I'm not even going to ask who was above, right? We'll just let you off. Who fell below 60? How many of you dude, I can't believe you fell below 60. How many of you guys, if you fall below 60, that means you're very active. You're probably a runner. You probably, because what that means is that when your heart pumps, it's pumping more oxygen through, right? And so usually that means that you have a stronger heartbeat. Now, I want you to do something. I want you to take, again, 30 seconds, okay? 30 seconds. Pull it up here. 30 seconds, and I want you to count your soul rate. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Stop. How many of you guys are like, what the heck was I just supposed to do? How many of you guys, see, it's fun when you're up here, you can do whatever you want sometimes, right? How many of you guys were like, he's really not going to wait 30 seconds, right? How many of you guys were like, this is just weird, it's too quiet. You've got to tell me something to do, right? Right? You know, it's funny. This idea of peace, this idea of rest, this idea of being still, of being quiet, it's really something that becomes very elusive, doesn't it? It's really one of those things that, we talk about through the scriptures, and God talks about it through this idea of Sabbath, this idea of Sabbath rest. And I don't know if it's one of those things that we really ever totally understand. In fact, we read about it through the scriptures. In fact, Hebrews chapter 4, verse 1, Hebrews 4:1, it says, therefore, since the promise of entering his rest still stands, let us be careful that none of you be found to have fallen short of it. So his rest still stands. Let's be careful that none of us fall short of that rest. How many of you love roller coasters? I remember my first roller coaster ride as a kid. I was probably, maybe 7, 8 years old, and I was just a little dude. And it was one of those roller coasters. It's all wooden kind that you ride on. It just shakes you like this all over the place. And it only had a lap bar, and the lap bar comes down. And if you're just a little dude, this lap bar doesn't do a thing for you, right? So every hill we're taking, my butt is flying off of this roller coaster. I take and I climb down underneath the lap bar, off of the seat, onto the place that you have your feet. I'm climbed down under there. I'm holding myself under the lap bar. And I'm yelling every hill we take. I'm yelling to my parents' friend, first roller coaster ride, my parents' friend who was riding with me. And I kept yelling, hold me down, Pete. Hold me down, Pete. I'll never forget that. It's like one of the most horrific memories I have as a childhood was my first roller coaster ride. So as a parent, that I want to be a great dad. And so I take my daughter. I remember she was probably like 4, and we go to an amusement park. And I said, Riley, do you want to get on the merry-go-round? And she says, yeah, Dad, I want to get on the merry-go-round. And so you have to try half a dozen horses before you find the right horse, right? So we get on the horse on the merry-go-round. I get on the one next to her. We're sitting there. And I look at her, and she's just grinning from ear to ear. She's so excited for the merry-go-round to start. And you know, merry-go-rounds, they kind of start slow, right? And so it starts going around real slow, the wind blowing through my hair. It's before I had 4 kids, I had hair. Wind blowing through my hair, and we're going around. And the horse, starts going up real easy and then down. And I look away for a split second. I'm like, wow, this is great. She's enjoying her first amusement park ride, right? I have horrific memories of amusement park ride. She's actually enjoying it. And next thing I do, I look over again. She's crying because at this point, we're just going, and we're just flying up and down, up and down. And she's like, Daddy, get me off of here. And so, middle of the ride, I pick her up, we go and we sit on the bench and finish the ride, right? So I gave her a horrific memory like I do. I wonder how many of us were walking through life, we're going through life, and it might be a new venture, it might be something new, creative, it might be a new place, and it starts out easy, right? It just starts out, we're just kind of going through, the wind blowing through whatever hair you have left, and we're just enjoying the ride, but it picks up speed. And as it picks up speed, it picks up motion. And as it picks up motion, it picks up a turbulence that you start feeling through your lives. And the scriptures say, hey, make sure you Sabbath, make sure you rest, make sure you're able to be still and be quiet. And you're like, how do I even do that? I don't think we truly understand Sabbath. What's interesting is it said, God created for 6 days, right? And then it says on the 7th day, he rested. Do you know why he rested on the 7th day? It's not because he was tired, okay? It's not like he looked and he was like, man, look at that elephant. I created that from the trunk all the way to the back end. Man, that thing was a beast. I'm exhausted. He didn't look at man because God created man on the what day? The 6th day. He didn't look at man and say, wow, man that was difficult. I created man on the 6th day. I'm exhausted. He didn't look at the woman and say, wow, she was more complicated than I think she would be, right? He didn't say that on the 7th day. That's not why he rested on the 7th day. Why did he rest on the 7th day? Because the 7th day was our what? Our first day. The 7th day was our first day. How many of us approach rest from a work mentality? We approach rest from this place that I have to work in order to get to a point of rest. I have to work and work hard and harder, and then I can get to a place of rest. But God didn't design it that way, did he? Our first day was a day of rest. How much does that first day being a day of rest give us a space, as we talked about last week, to create? Because I can't truly create what it is that God wants to create through me unless I allow him to speak into the depths of my soul. And I can't allow him to speak into the depths of my soul if I've not created a space, if I've not created a place of rest, of stillness, of quiet for him to speak to me. How many of us struggle with being a peacemaker because we struggle with finding peace ourselves? It's interesting in history. The Jews actually created Saturday as their Sabbath. That was their first day of the week. The Christians then, they created Sunday as their day of rest because Jesus rose on a Sunday. And so whatever you think of religion, you could not like religion, but you got to say, wow, that's fantastic. I get a weekend every week because of religion, right? It's just great. And if we want to start practicing, like maybe some Islam customs, they take Friday. And so we could like have a 3-day weekend. Or if we could even stretch it, we could say, you know what? we're gonna worship the moon as well, because Monday is Moon Day, and so we'll get Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday off every week. We work 3 days a week like Europeans, right? Wouldn't that be fantastic? And so how many of us, though, we don't understand this idea of quiet and rest because we work to a rest instead of saying, I'm going to start from a place of rest. And I'm talking to you guys about something that is so hard for me to sometimes just slow down because the merry-go-round of life just keeps getting faster and faster and faster. And I have to just stop. And I just have to say, Lord, why am I so anxious? You know, in the same passage as the Beatitudes, Jesus talks later and he talks about not worrying about anything. Do you know that Gallup did a poll and they said we are the most anxious, stressed out generation? It's not like we're walking outside of our homes and we're afraid that a lion's going to eat us, right? I don't have to wake up every day and worry, am I going to be able to grow those strawberry plants so my family can eat tomorrow, right? They don't grow. I go to the store and I buy some strawberries. I don't have to worry about those things. We have technology that walks with us day and night. We have all of these things at our disposal, but we are the most stressed out generation. Have we lost the ability to be still? And in our approach to life, do we approach life? Do we approach spirituality? Do we approach God from a place of saying, my first day of the week is going to be a day that I hear God speak to me and tell me what he wants me to do? My wife went to Ohio just a little over a week ago. We divide and conquer. She took 2 kids. I kept 2 kids. You could say I got the better end of the deal. I kept the 2 oldest, but 8-year-old boys are still not very self-sufficient. And in addition to that, I also had to watch 2 little ones that my wife watches. So I'm working from my home office, and I'm watching kids, and the 2 kids are 5 and 2. Before my wife left, she sat down the 2-year-old, and she said, her name is Emma. And Emma, you know, she's pretty determined. She's strong. And my wife says, Emma, who's in charge? Who's the boss? And Emma says, you know, Connie. And then Connie says, well, who else is in charge? Who else is the boss, Emma? And Emma says, you know, she can't say Mr. Mike, so she says Meter Mike. So I'm the meter man, I don't know. Meter Mike. And then she pauses, and then she says, and Caden. Caden is my 5-year-old that is the Nazi around the house and tells everybody what to do. So she had to throw Caden in there too. Caden's in charge. Not you, Connie, not you, Meter Mike, right? Caden's in charge. How much of our inability to be quiet and be still is due to our lack of ability to say God is in ultimate control? How much of me just slowing things down? I mean, I would be crazy if I said, you know what, the weather here has been kind of ridiculous the last 3 weeks. It's a lot of rain. You know, I want some sunshine. I'm going to go control the weather. It would be ridiculous, but how often do we try to control those things that aren't ours to control? And how much of our inability to be quiet and be still is because I don't want to say God's the boss? We talked a few weeks ago about authority. God's ultimate love and provision comes out of his authority for us, just like myself as a dad. For my love of my kids, the provision that I give my kids comes out of the authority that God has given me within the life of my kids. But how often do we bypass some of those things? That makes it very difficult for us to be still and to be quiet. The band's going to come up, and they're going to lead us in a short time here of reflection, of quiet, of stillness. We want to help us to learn as a community. I truly believe that if we can learn as a community what it means to be still, I think this next verse starts to take root. Let me read this for you. It's John 8, verse 47. It says, he who belongs to God hears what God says. The reason you do not hear is that you do not belong to God. Again, it says, he who belongs to God hears what God says. How much are we approaching our lives, beginning each week from a place of Sabbath, from a place of rest, from a place of quietness, and saying, today, I want to make today the day that I say, and not the only day through our weeks, guys, but today is a day of fresh beginnings. Today is a day that a brand new week starts. And I love that God is all about new. He's all about recreating. He's all about giving a space for us to come at life fresh. How many of us take today and we say, God, I need to hear from you in order to know how you want to lead me this week? And I can tell you that is not going to happen for us until we learn to slow down, until we become comfortable in those 30 seconds of quiet. So the band's going to walk us through an exercise. For some of us, it's going to be very difficult. But it's an exercise to teach and to train and to learn what it means to be still, what it means to be quiet, what it means to hear the author of life speak into us. As we learn to rest, we learn to hear the voice of God. As we learn the voice of God, we learn what it means to walk in peace. Then we become peacemakers. And blessed are the peacemakers, for they are the sons of God.